In a Zendo, it's probably harder to do because there's more emphasis on the stillness that's shared. But by the way, actually, just the question about note taking during a talk that came up yesterday, I'd have a slightly different view on it than Valerie. I think it's okay if you want to. I mean, I don't really see that it'll be very valuable, probably, but it's fine if you want to try. And people do that during retreats and things. I mean, even in some of the teachers' retreats that we go to, I notice some teachers will take notes in talks. I mean, you might find you never look at them, but not a big deal. But definitely while sitting alone, yes, have a pen and paper next to you for that very purpose. I mean, of course, it's better if you don't get too carried away, start writing paragraphs and pages and writing your next novel, I mean, because you're trying to devote this time to sitting. But, okay, let's do the next one, please, Dan.
Okay. The method of how to hold your hands in Zen mind, beginner's mind, seems to take a lot of effort. Can you give an advice on relaxing hands, arms? Is it okay to secure my arms to my torso with a belt so that my hands don't keep sliding away from me?
Well, I mean, it's fine if it's comfortable, but it sounds like a rather elaborate thing to do. Can't you just rest your hands either in your lap or on your thighs? Forget about the mudra. That's secondary. Just having relaxed hands is more important. I think if the mudra, that by the way, the mudra in this case means hand position. You're probably talking about that one where the hands are in a kind of oval egg shape sort of thing, thumb tips touching, fingers on fingers, I guess. Um, I mean, if you like doing it, doesn't sound like you do, but if you do, then find a way to prop it on a fold of cloth, or fold your shirt or your something that you can just sort of lodge it on there so it'll rest. I'm a big fan of hoodies because they have that pouch in front, which is just great for resting hands in. I think it's made for it, actually. So seems to me they're the just ideal sitting costume. Forget all the robes. You just want a hoodie, because then you can pull a hood up, especially if you've got a bald head, keep yourself warm in the mornings, and you can put your hands in the little pouch. It's a dream. Don't get a zip one, the one with a zipper, because they don't have the pouch. You want to be able to have the hands meet. That's just a possibility. Otherwise, yeah, mudra is secondary. Relaxed hands. Some people like to just lightly clasp the hands together. Some people like to do hand on either thigh. Okay. Next one, please, Dan.
Okay, next question. I heard you speak on a Thursday a few weeks back, and you mentioned you were working on a new book comparing Zen practice to mindfulness and the importance of the idea of Kensho and Zen. You downplayed the awakening aspect of Zen on Thursday. Is this because if one places too much importance on awakening, it will make it all the more impossible? I'm also curious about some of the distinctions you would make between mindfulness and Zen practice.
Okay, great question. And by the way, they've all been great questions. Thank you. Well, first of all, mindfulness means a lot of different things. I mean, in the early Buddhist teachings and sutras, mindfulness is really what the practice is all about, and it's supposed to, if done, sort of carefully and diligently, it will evolve towards samadhi, which is deeper concentration. It'll do that quite naturally because of following the instructions for mindfulness. And actually, mindfulness of breath is the standard first practice in Zen. So they're completely in step there. Where Zen, but mindfulness today has come to mean that, of course, if you're in, sort of Buddhist context, it still means exactly what I said. But there's a more sort of generic non-Buddhist or sort of, extracted from Buddhism use of the word mindfulness, that really means paying attention to the here and now. And I mean, that's a fair definition of it, even in Buddhism, except that it's applied in more and more sort of careful, clever, strategic ways, and it sort of evolves. But it allows us to evolve, in beautiful ways, becoming less attached, essentially, to our thoughts and feelings, and it's fantastic. But in modern mindfulness, people talk about the mindfulness movement, it's with maybe 100 million people or more do it or have done it in the US and in all kinds of contexts. Not for it's a little bit hard to say definitively these things, but by and large, the emphasis in those sort of non, I don't like the word spiritual, but non-spiritual contexts, or non-contexts that aren't so much about growth of the whole person, maybe, maybe more therapeutic, maybe more about stress reduction, maybe more about doing a good job at work, having more stamina, more concentration, sustained concentration, power, and that sort of thing. In those contexts, it's really not about growing in very deep and unexpected ways. It's really sort of managing one's life and moods and reactivity better, which is great. Absolutely great. Nothing wrong with that. So I would say that Zen traditionally has included mindfulness, not in the more thorough way that some other forms of Buddhism have explored it, but still it's there very much. What Zen has also had as an emphasis, especially in certain kinds of Zen, and I got to acknowledge there are really different kinds of Zen. In the kind that we're doing here, there is an acknowledgement of this possibility of this thing called Kensho, seeing original nature, which is, quite and that's the same thing, really, as this awakening experience. Sometimes I want to talk about it. Sometimes I just don't want to talk about it. I'm sorry. I don't really know why. I mean, I could sort of probably figure out why if I thought about it. Sometimes I think it's beneficial that we all know about it as a possibility. Sometimes I think it's a bad thing to obsess about it or to get too caught up in wanting it. Because the difficulty is, if you've had a glimpse of it, great, but don't be attached to it. If you haven't had a glimpse of it, no worries. Don't start thinking that's something I need to have. And the point of practice is to have that. I think that would be very misleading. There's all kinds of forms of growth that happen through practice. And just one of them is that awakening thing. Now, it's true that it can be pretty amazing in its implications about the rest of our life. And, because it is, after all, a discovery. At the very least, is a discovery that we have not been the separate person we thought we were. We haven't been the separate self that we thought we were. At the very least, it's that. I mean, usually with that, I'd say a sort of minimum definition is seeing through that sense of self, being released from it. It's a very surprising thing. I mean, I can say it like that and it doesn't sound like much. So what? Sense of self goes quiet or is gone or whatever. Big deal. No, it's a very big deal because we've lived with it as the anchor at the heart of our lives for so long. It's astonishing to find that it was never really there. It is an amazing thing. But you can't make yourself see that. No matter how much you want to, you can't do it because you are the thing that will be seen through. How do you do it? There are many traditions that have many methods and approaches, and none of them are infallible. None of them are foolproof. Not one of them is reliable. But, because it's real, because it reveals something that's real, I think is a good thing that it's acknowledged and that there are places and traditions or schools that talk about it. But it's also got to be balanced by the strong emphasis that don't seek it, because that only pushes it away. Number one. Number two, don't waste your time sitting really obsessing about that. There's so many other growth opportunities in sitting that have nothing to do with awakening, kind of, you'll get regardless of awakening. Thirdly, I can't think of a third reason now, but there sure to hell is one why it's not wise to be obsessed about. I'll tell you another reason. How many wise people have you encountered in your life who clearly, awakening wasn't part of their world? They were uninterested in it, and yet deeply wise, kind, happy, helpful people. I know I've met quite a few. Somehow, wisdom and awakening definitely have an important overlap, but neither guarantees the other. Awakening doesn't guarantee wisdom. It may guarantee one little shaft of wisdom while there's confusion and delusion in other areas. We've seen that again and again with gurus misbehaving. Well, that's putting it too kindly, abusing people. So we know that awakening is not a cure-all, actually, even though it can definitely seem like it. I mean, it's a little tricky if you're in a deep path of practice and you've because there are different sort of levels of awakening. I think it's possible there could be some really seismic, catastrophic loss of everything that we might reach at some point, maybe, that could be kind of a cure-all, sort of, but even then the work begins after, because there's this whole world is in flames, Okay, enough on that. So should we go to the next one, Dan, please?
Okay. I've heard some teachers guide people saying, quote, may I be, or may they be, unquote. Is this part of the tradition we're practicing now? It sounds a bit like prayer, even a type of craving. Could it be that may implies a kind of releasing and returning? May I could imply asking for permission. Maybe the may is more of an allowing. Your thoughts appreciated.
Okay, well, I can only speak to the context where I commonly hear this, and it's widely used in a certain kind of meditation that is not really part of Zen or Mahayana Buddhism. Zen is part of a family of sort of Buddhist practices that includes Tibetan Buddhism and various others. I think it's fair to say this, that evolved around the 1st century BCE and known as Mahayana. I don't want to get into the details too much, but in the earlier form of Buddhism, Theravada, the way of the elders, it's even today, it's still more common to do what they call a metta meditation or a loving kindness meditation, where formulas just like that would be used. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free. May you be safe. May you be well. May you be free. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free. Yes, it is perhaps something like a prayer. I agree. What we have in Zen that sort of relates to it is there are 4 traditional vows. I vow to, even though beings are numberless, I vow to try to free them all, help them all to be well. Even though delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to strive to end them all. Even though the Dharma lessons are endless, I vow to learn them all. Even though the way is unsurpassable, or limitless or uncompletable, I vow to live it fully, to embody it fully. So that's, those are declarations of intent, not prayers. The loving kindness meditations are, I don't think there's a magical component in them, really. I think they're just expressing a wish, and a wish that all beings be well. And it's rather a beautiful thing to contemplate and to do. I sometimes do it to myself, in my own mind, because it's very. I mean, really, that is what this practice is for: is that all beings be well and safe, free from harm. And what a beautiful thing to strive for, and to know that this practice is part of that aspiration, that intention, that purpose, healing the wounds of the world. And it's very good to be reminded of that. So thanks for bringing that up. Okay, Dan, if you're ready.
Yep. Next question. I'm interested to know more of your thoughts on managing anger, hate. Sometimes when not wanting to experience the poison of anger, a spiritual bypassing happens when people pretend they are never angry or hateful, and that's kind of avoidance of reality. And sometimes anger is a motivating and helpful emotion. For example, motivating us to correct injustice or to protect others from harm. Can you share your thoughts on integrating anger and hate that come up in sitting and into life in an authentic practice? Or is there no room at all for them and they are just poisons to be avoided?
Okay, great question. Thanks. I mean, first of all, I'd almost prefer that this question was more personal, but I think it is in the latter part. How do I sit with anger when it comes up, for example? I mean, if I can speak to it better on that level, and then we can just address the bigger picture. But I mean, when anger comes up, which it will, I mean, first of all, I don't believe in avoiding poisons. I mean, it's about acknowledging them. It's about recognizing them, knowing when they're active. And it's not about avoiding them, not at all. We want to open to them. We want to see them at work in us. So if anger comes up, I want to know, that I'm angry. That's the first thing, because if I don't, it's a much more difficult situation. So the first thing is to have the emotional education, emotional versatility, or whatever, to know I'm having an emotion and I know which one it is. And, basically we've got 4 primary colors, as you probably all know: anger, sadness, fear, and gladness. Sad, mad, glad, afraid, as it's sometimes put. Those are the big primary colors of emotion, with quite a lot of fine gradations, among them. So to know that anger is arising is very good. And to make space for it and to allow for it, and not to resist it, but to welcome it and know it, is the way to go. Now, what about is anger sort of, well, why is it called a poison? Okay. Well, here's the tricky thing. anger, there is actually a distinction made between two kinds of anger. Anger with ill will. That means anger where you really want to sort of harm somebody or some being. So the anger has an intent or a wish to cause harm. And then there's anger without ill will. And that could be, more like anger on behalf of those who are oppressed and treated unjustly, for example. It's a kind of anger that, it could even that could spill over into anger with intent or wish to harm. But so the key thing is just that distinction, first of all. But then also, I think in a mature practice, there is sort of space for emotion. They can flare up and quickly be seen as empty, and then we're just left with the energy. And anger, I agree, is a very good energy. Anger, if you take out the anger, the energy of anger is fantastic. So you just, it's energizing, it's a call to action and all of that. That's good. So to be able to empty the anger of its kind of impurities, as it were. That's not quite the right way to put it, but do you see what I mean? Like, let it be a clear energy. How do you get it to be a clear energy? Take out the harmful intent for sure. And you'll find there's pain in anger. So can you somehow allow it to be there, and then when it's a pure energy, it's not painful anymore. I don't know how to explain this, actually. I think I need to do a bit more work on it myself. I've been, these last 4 years, I've had more anger than probably maybe ever in my life. I don't know. And it's been on behalf of many, many people being horribly wronged by people who should know better, who are in power. And it's I've had to. I am still. Even though that administration is over, I'm still learning to. It taught me that I have ways to go in knowing the terrain of anger. And I believe it's a fruitful terrain somehow to know. And I do know that it's quite empty, which is a help. I see that, and I recognize the difference between kind of the sort of, darker anger and the very clear anger that is actually just good energy. So that's my little mini Taisho on anger, that I'm sure others would do much better than me. But anyway, there's a start. So Dan, should we go on?
Okay, next question. How to choose Zen? 71 years of life on this body, on this planet, has not yet made it clear that Zen is my path. It is an intellectual choice at this point. Can you offer examples of some really good reasons to practice Zen to a case like me? Perhaps another way to say or ask is, how has it benefited you? I accept if you don't want to spend time on this question. Feel free to send me off to pre-Zen course in appreciation for your generosity.
Thank you very much. I like that pre-Zen. I think I'm doing it still. Look, no, I'm sorry. I'm not here to justify this practice. I'm sorry. No. You could, if you want to know how it benefited me, if you're a reader, you could read my book, One Blade of Grass. If you're not a reader, you could listen to it. But if you're interested in my personal story about Zen, but damn, what are you doing here? Why are you practicing? Actually, do you want to unmute and answer these questions? Would you like to? I don't want to put you on the spot, but you might have something interesting to say. It's okay if you don't want to, but put up your hand if you're willing to. I totally understand if you'd rather not. It's okay. But otherwise, I'm going to have to guess because, something's making you do this retreat. Number one, because Oh yeah, great, great, great. Well done, Diana. Okay, so let's hear it. Why are you on this retreat? What's drawn you to do meditation practice? And hey, Dan, can we let Diana unmute?
Yeah, I requested already.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Okay, so
So,
Diana, why are you meditating?
okay. In my, when I was 19, I started with TM, right? And I have a long history of dabbling. And, and, I just got to a point where I felt like I need to find something solid, um, and not just fly all over the place. And so I heard you on the Waking Up app, and I liked your voice, and I did listen to your book, um, One Blade of Grass, and so I guess I'm tiptoeing in, sampling, trying to find out, because I don't really know about Zen in particular, and it's just never come across the screen very strong until I heard you. And then I thought of the people I knew who practiced Zen, and I talked to them. They happen to be people I like being around, and the quality of their being I like. So I thought, there must be something here. Um, I'm just kind of testing it out for myself.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
but I do feel I've heard people say it's hard, it's frustrating, well, I get that part so far. I got that part. So I'm
so,
just wanting to, it's just my mind wanting to, be fed. And that's why I said you don't have to answer, because I realize where it's coming from. But I mean, I'm here. You have a Q&A. I thought maybe I'd try.
excellent, excellent. Thank you. And I'm very impressed that you speak openly like this. It's great. Yeah, I was a TMer too way back. Well, I mean, I'm not really gonna sort of, I mean, you're doing the right thing. Just come and do a retreat. I've got a feeling you've done another one. I think I've seen your name before. Yeah. So that's the right thing. Just come and sit. It's not that hard. If you only do 9 to 3:30, it's really not that hard. And just see how, don't try to make a decision. I mean, something's drawing you to try it. Fine, try it and wait and see, and just keep doing it until it's obvious that it's a bad idea. I would say. Yeah. Okay. I hope that's enough. And thanks for speaking up. Dan, should we keep going?
Okay. What does the phrase "not knowing is most intimate" mean? I heard you use that and wonder especially what the most intimate part means. It's such a beautiful phrase.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. I mean, I would just sit with the beautiful phrase. If you find it beautiful, just sit with it and let that beauty resonate through your whole being. You'll find it far better that way. I mean, you're already finding it. If you're tasting some beauty in it, I could only spoil that if I try to talk it through. That's the way to go with it. Just let that beauty be in your body, in your heart, in your mind. Let it suffuse you. So you just say the phrase and don't worry about what it means. If you don't worry about what it means, then you're letting it be a koan. Just sort of letting it just kind of cast its little spell, or however you describe it, in your sitting, in your life, maybe. Not knowing is most intimate. Sort of, I don't quite understand it, but I feel something. There's a spell that I'm sensing that is casting. Great. That's enough.
Okay, next question.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Can you say something about the guidance you gave today about noticing the dark space in back behind?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Nice question. Yeah, I think, well, there's a whole sort of world of ways of trying to open up our sense of a more pervasive awareness that is holding all of our experience, like a beautiful context. So as if our life, like for example, right now, what you're seeing and hearing and the room you're in, and this whole is a little box, really. As a little box of experience. Even if we're out in front of mountains, it's still a kind of a box of experience. And that box, like a stage, is held in a vast space. And that vast space is kind of conscious, and it wraps around behind. It's all, and it comes through, and it's in everything, and it is everything. And that's sometimes called non-dual awareness. They sometimes call it that. So this thing of behind is actually one way that teachers of that sometimes try to help people discover it. And so, I mean, if you just imagine, I mean, right now, maybe this will work. If you can just sort of see everything that's in front of you as a kind of, yeah, something like a little toy theater, a little toy stage. I don't know, when I was a kid, I think at some point we had this little cardboard box that had like a stage and, sort of backdrop at the back of it and a wall either side, and it was open at the front, and maybe a little indication that there was the stage ended and there was a little gap, and maybe the seats would then be off that. So imagining that what you're seeing now is a bit like that, is a little toy cardboard sort of theater set. And actually, if you can just sense, I don't know if you can, but somehow it's got space beyond it, behind it, to either side of it, around it. And sometimes it's easiest to find that sense if you imagine now the back of your body and let two doors, like French windows, just open wide. And you can kind of fall back. You don't fall very far. It's just like a sort of little, you open behind yourself to that. There's space behind. It's just that it's unlike the space to the side and in front, it sort of feels darker somehow. Let yourself see if you can just sense it. It's more of a sensing thing. You can't really look at it because it's actually already in everything. So to look for it doesn't work because it's already in your seeing. It's what you're seeing is made of. It's this great enveloping consciousness and the sort of awareness. I don't know, it's hard to name it really, but it's holding all of our experience, and it's in all, it's threaded through all of our experience. Okay, imagine you open the window behind you and fog comes rolling in as if through the city streets. A fog comes in off the sea, a mist comes in off the meadows, through this open window behind, rolling through your experience right here and now. Can you imagine it that way? Can you feel it that way? Imagination can help with this, actually. We start with imagining, and then, we get a little hit. There's something there. It's like there's a way of touching, tasting this different dimension of awareness itself. So that's what I was just glancing at earlier. And it's such a beautiful thing to taste, actually, to get. To see, sometimes you just get the tiniest little hint, just a microsecond, something. Great. You don't have to try to find it. It won't show up actually through trying. So there's these little exercises like that. Just get a little inkling. Yeah. Okay. Dan, I think we'll. Yeah. It's. I don't know whether anybody got a hit of that. It's very nice though, because it's the thing about it is it has got this inbuilt quality of amazing sort of lovingness in that very awareness. It's like I don't know, it's kind of like falling into the arms of a great tenderness. It's I don't know whether that's anybody's getting a little glimpse, a little taste. There's this sort of, it's almost like clouds of warm love, clouds of warm love that are aware, that are actually all through our awareness, all through our experiences. It's as if our experience is made of them, made of it, and it's bigger than our experience. That's the thing. It's just a bit bigger than our experience. But when we taste it, we know that it's really, well, it's intimate with who we are somehow. And it's a relief, actually, to taste it as well, to know it, to be held by it. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Well, that was just a little micro. What was that? A micro dose? Was it? Dare I say that? Somebody who doesn't do that stuff, but okay. Let's see. Dan, any more?
Yeah. Looks like about 3 more.
Okay.
What if I had a distracting thought that isn't making me suffer? For some reason, I woke up with the Life of Brian soundtrack in my head. And when I try to quiet it down while meditating, my mind just turns the volume louder. Unlike normal thoughts, this isn't making me suffer. In fact, it's quite joyful, but it's definitely not meditating. I feel like the song is on autopilot.
Yeah. Well, great. There's some kind of rite of passage, I think, to have your first earworm on a retreat. I don't know if it is your first, actually. Maybe you've had it before, but it's possible to get an earworm. I guess you know that expression. It's when you got a song that you can't forget on your mind, I had Return to Sender once for almost a whole session. It just kept coming back, Elvis, Return to Sender. And then it sometimes it morphed into Return to Zendo. But I didn't listen to it. I didn't listen to the message. I just kept hearing the song. So what do you do about it? Well, you're enjoying it. I don't know. I wonder whether there's a little smidgen of frustration in there as well, that you want this thing to stop because you should be meditating or something. Well, actually, the answer, as I understand it, is the same as for talk. Label it. Okay, it's not talk, but it's exactly the same channel. You're listening to the radio. Just happens to be playing a song instead of news and commentary. Most of the time, it's just commentary. Occasionally, you get a history program. Sometimes you get sort of scary prognostications about the future. A lot of just present moment commentary, like a sports commentator. I mean, we'll all get different things. A lot of busy planning, right? I mean, I'm talking about what the radio does, and every so often it plays a song, plays a top 10 hit, whatever. Life of Brian. But it's a good choice, actually. Life of Brian. What a great movie. Is it what is it? Does it end with it's that song about being happy, isn't it? I wonder if it was that song. I can't now remember how it goes. It's they're whistling it, aren't they, on the crosses? It's
Always look on the bright side of life.
always look on the bright side. Exactly. Oh my God, what a great movie. So anyway, so what do you do? Well, this is what I would suggest, assuming you don't want to you won't enjoy it forever. You'll get bored of it and you'll want it to stop, and then it'll get louder. So that's not so nice. What you do is you label it hearing. I mean, you can't, ideally you'd use talk, but it's not quite right. Radio, you know. Or I use the label hear in, meaning inner or inward hearing. Hear in, because you're hearing inwardly. Hear in. Every couple of seconds, acknowledging. And so, in other words, the key thing really is to actually tune your dial of mindfulness to that inner channel. So then you're aware of what's going on, and you're mindful of what's going on, of what's arising in present moment experience. That is the salient thing, the uppermost thing in your attention. Then you're aware of it, and you're being aware while hearing it. So the label can be a very, very helpful tool for creating that, and it'll sooner or later it'll dissipate. They'll play another song, or they'll stop broadcasting. The movie will be over. Life of Brian is a 2-hour movie. Probably won't be 2 hours. It'll just end because you're mindful of it. And then you come back to whatever is your primary practice. And for sure, it might start up again and then be back to labeling. Here in. It's a fairly simple protocol and surprisingly effective. Okay, Dan, let's see, what else?
Okay, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I sometimes meditate while lying down to fall back asleep. Might this make me more likely to fall asleep while sitting? Do you advise against it? Do you advise against ever lying down while meditating?
Absolutely not one little bit. No, I think it's a great thing to do. First of all, you'll get some sleep, which is great, and that'll probably incline you to be fresher when meditating during the day. Secondly, the idea is that we can be practicing, that is, sort of intending to be aware in all waking, they say postures, meaning whether we're sitting, lying, standing, or walking, or in activity, walking / activity, standing, lying, sitting, all of the 4 postures they're known as. So this is just a perfect example of that. I say it's a very smart thing to do. Okay, Dan, is there another?
Yeah, 2 more short ones. I've heard a few teachers talk about letting go of views and opinions. This has become a type of Cohen for me, and I was wondering if you might be willing to share a few thoughts.
Yes, that's beautiful. I mean, I would assume that that's rather close to what we're talking about when we talk about not knowing, shedding views and opinions. It may not be only that, but it's probably got some overlap with not knowing. So just when we think views and opinions, it's good really, because we can get quite sure we're right about something, especially if we see or hear a contrary opinion. Then we're going to get dig in our heels a little bit. No, I really am sure now. This is, So what is it like? What's the emotion tone associated with that? Can I be aware of that in the body? Our practice is to note what's arising. There's probably some cognitive, some thoughts associated with it as well. Can I just hear them, be aware of them? Can I just feel whatever emotion tone there may be as well? Can I feel that in the body? And be unattached, just letting these things arise. These thoughts, these feelings, let them arise. Don't try to stop them and don't hold on to them. Just be the space in which they arise. That's how we practice. Basically across the board, really, including with views and opinions. I mean, there is a saying in Zen, if just as an old poem, just discard opinions, pro and con. Just discard preferences and opinions, and then you're free. You'll find a great, great freedom from letting go of those things. And it's a fantastic training and approach. It's true. It's when we find, if we can, and one way to do that is to feel it in the body and let it be there. Give it the space. In other words, you don't try to push it away. That would actually just be another preference or another opinion. It would be the opinion that opinions aren't good or something, Just be the space in which they're arising. And things will shift. Okay, Dan, is there another? I think you mentioned 2.
Yeah, one more. I think you'll like this. Last one. I love your Cohen pieces on the Waking Up app. They brought me here. I understand that they are not real Cohen training, but they induce such beautiful silence and awe and insight in my mind. And just now, you told someone to make a Cohen out of a beautiful phrase. So, is it okay to use them without having a teacher after all?
Well, I think so, very definitely. I mean, for a long time, for eons, people have been hearing talks on koans, and there are different levels of engagement. Of course there are. There are some people who get right in and they really want the full training, and then you got to have a teacher. There are other people, I mean, the years I've been teaching, it's only 10 years, but we've always had people who sort of come in and maybe regularly hear talks or come now and then and hear talk. And every time it's on a koan, and they're free to do what they want with it. They go home and sit with it or whatever. And and they never engage with a teacher. I think it's absolutely normal that there be different levels of practice and training. And we may begin by just getting a talk now and then, a hit now and then, and then if we're curious, or if something inside us sits up and says, I want more of this, then we come closer and we get more involved, and at some point we may say, I really want to do this as a training. And then you got to have a teacher, I think. I mean, probably that's not entirely true. I've actually got a friend who is quite a well-known sort of spiritual writer, Charles Eisenstein. Some of you may have read some of his stuff. And he kind of trained himself years ago with the Mumonkan, with the Wu Men Guan, the gateless gate. I was astonished when I first heard this like 8 years ago, 10 years ago. What do you mean? He said, well, I just read one and sit with it. And I tune in and I find the freedom in it, he said, or something like that. And I'm, well, great. Is there anything wrong with that? No, of course not. It's great. And I think I really feel myself that sort of generally speaking in spirituality, again, not liking that word, but in this kind of growth that that we're engaged in, and it's really hazardous to have too many rules. It's a realm of love. It's a realm of boundless love. And how appropriate is it to make rules? I don't know. I mean, there's an argument for, yes, the deep training does require some kind of submission, which I personally never wanted to do, but I'm so glad I did. And I think there's probably many people who would die rather than sort of submit in any sense, you know. And I think we in Sambo Zen, I ventured the opinion that we got it somewhat well worked out, in the sense that if somebody enters deep training, they're going to be kind of, to some extent, putting their spiritual development partially in the hands. No, they're not really. They're accepting guidance. They're accepting guidance from somebody. And, you know, that's a risky thing to do. And it takes some courage and trust to do it. But I will say this, you know, we're a lay lineage. So we don't have many of the opportunities for extremely unhealthy power dynamics that can happen in spiritual circles, because we, you know, all we should have influence over, and I think do have influence over, is this particular form of spiritual training with koans, really, if you want it, you know, and you come and go as you wish. So I think it's relatively safe context. I mean, having said that, there have been appalling stories of abuse in Zen too, in the West. I mean, it's shocking, utterly shocking. But typically they involved more residential living. And they also involved masters who were free of any institutional accountability, who had no, they weren't part of an institution of any kind. I mean, that's one of the advantages of having some kind of institution, by the way, is that, I mean, it can go horribly wrong. Just look at the Catholic Church, but to have, at the moment, Sambo Zen is an overarching body that all of us teachers in it are accountable to, and we're accountable to one another. And so I don't know why I'm getting into this, actually. I'm not sure it's relevant. I was just talking about different levels of engagement. So you see what I mean? It's of course there are different levels of engagement. Yeah. And for some of them, you do need a teacher. It's very true. I'm also happy to hear that, you know, there's some benefit coming from those audios on waking up. I'm happy to hear that. There's incredibly beautiful pockets and keys to the human heart. I was going to say pockets of wisdom and keys to the human heart, these koans. Keys to extraordinary treasures that we couldn't really imagine until we taste them. So happy to share, really. Okay. So Dan, thank you very much indeed. And thanks everybody. Thanks for the questions. I'm going to say